Hey everybody, Pastor Greg here yet again. It is so good to see you. It's so good to be here with you. I'm so excited about this series that we have this month, Ernest Holmes, The Science of Mind, the 4-part introduction. We're going to get back into that in a minute, but I just want to encourage each and every one of you, if the ministry, if the music, if the message of CSC is impacting your life, if it's transforming, if it's healing your life, I encourage you to support this ministry by giving. You can go to our website, www.celebrationsc.org, and click the option to give. Additionally, if you're on our mailing list, you can click the donate button that you get in our weekly emails and give whatever feels good. Again, we always believe it's what you give, it's how you give, not what you give. And so make sure that it feels good to you and celebrate and support the ministry and the work that we're doing. Again, we're going to get back into today's message. I promise you will enjoy it. Let's go to it. Oh, powerful, 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 powerful. Thank you, Soul 21. That powerful ministry. Oh my goodness. Well, good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. How are we doing? How are we feeling? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we're going to jump right into today's message. We have a lot to cover. I'm very excited about it. So as always, we like to review. Week 1, where did we start? We started with Think to Live, recognizing that as we understand that there's a conscious mind, which is spirit, and there's a subjective mind, which is law. We recognize that as we understand what the thing itself is, as it's infinite and can become anything and everything at all times, as we just sung about, we recognize that we have to think to live, that if we want to live, if we want to thrive in our lives, it's actually through our thoughts that we begin to do that. If you didn't hear the message, please go back to it. It's on YouTube. Last week, the progeny of God. We talked about this idea of understanding who and what we are. And as we understand who and what we are, that is how then we're able to let this thing work in, through, and as us, recognizing that as the second part of that introduction to the science of mind is titled The Way It Works. How does it work? It works through us. So if it's working through us, then we have to know who we are in order for that thing to happen. And so as we are using this introduction from the science of mind, the first part is the thing itself. The second part is the way it works. The third part is what it does. And the fourth part, which will be next week, is how to use it. And so as I was sitting with this journey that we're taking, what I was understanding and really thinking about is that what we're doing in going through this 4-part introduction is we're creating a new God concept. Because one of the things I think is critical when we come to new thought, when we come to new thought philosophy, we have to actually expand our idea of who and what God is. Because we've normally been given a very narrow idea of what God is. We've normally been given an idea of God that one may have it judging us, right? That somehow we've hurt the infinite's feelings by something that we did, right? Or we may have an idea of this thing, God is withholding something from us because we've been praying or asking for something, and when things don't work out, we're like, well, why did God allow that to happen? And so in understanding these principles and these teachings, we're creating a new God concept. And I love something that Ernest Holmes writes here in this third part, and what it does. He writes, "It has been said that we can know God only insofar as we become God." And he goes on in that piece, he says, now, hear this. It's not to be taken literally, right? Because as we've already said, the thing itself is infinite. It's all-encompassing. It can never actually be encompassed. It's continuing to express and unfold and unfold. And so when we're talking about becoming God, we're not talking about literally becoming that thing, because that's an impossibility, as you are an individual expression of that thing. But in order to truly know who and what God is, in order to truly know who and what Source is, it is necessary for us to begin to embody an idea and expand our ideas about what that thing is. So in this section, Ernest Holmes sort of creates a synopsis here that I want to share that will serve us as we move forward. And so he writes this. He says, "Let us restate our principle. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. As it passes into our being, it automatically becomes the law of our lives. It can pass into expression through us only as we consciously allow it to do so. Therefore, we should have faith in it and its desires and its ability to do for us all that we shall ever need to have done. Since it must pass through our consciousness to operate for us, we must be conscious that it is doing so. And so if you recall in the previous weeks, we talked about this idea that is so beautifully crystallized in the teachings or in the stories and the examples of how Jesus dealt on the earth, that actually it is done unto us as we believe. Yes, yes? We recognize that it's actually about our faith and belief that brings anything into being and into manifestation. It's not that God is limited, right? God can only do to us or for us what God can do through us. And so if there's a limitation in our mind about what's possible, then the unconditionally loving presence doesn't fight against that. That's what's so beautiful when we think about this idea of it being so loving. Love is so unconditional. It doesn't force you into doing anything. It doesn't push you into doing anything. This is why I love that beautiful, beautiful verse that we see in the book of Corinthians that's attributed to Paul, but if you go to the Gospel of Peace, you'll actually see that Jesus actually said these words as well. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy. We know that, and it's quoted by so many people, right? We understand that. And so we understand that if love is patient and love is kind, then it's not going to push or force itself at any time in any way. And so this is what the Spirit is doing. If we have a limited thought in our mind, it lovingly allows us to keep holding that thought, not knocking it out of the way, not saying we're wrong, but simply allowing us to be gods on the earth, allowing us to be the creators that we are. Yes, yes. Do we understand that? Beautiful. And so we're going to talk from a topic today, preparation meets manifestation. And so I love where Ernest Holmes, he highlights a few things in this, what it does that I want to talk about as we move forward to understand that preparation meets manifestation. So in order to manifest, as he's talking about what it does, in order to create, in order to demonstrate the power of God in, through, and as us, he says that we need a couple things. The first thing Ernest Holmes says that we need is that, or it needs an outlet. And he writes it this way: the divine mind is infinite. It contains all knowledge and wisdom, but before it can reveal its secrets, it must have an outlet. This outlet we shall be compelled to supply through our own receptive mentalities. Now, he also says that we have to make a connection. He says that unity must be established and a conscious connection must be made with this thing that we call God, this thing itself that we've been talking about, this thing that we call source, the thing that we call the all that is. Use whatever name you want to use. You have to have a conscious connection with it. This is why we affirm and sing songs like, I am one with all that is, how powerful I am. This is why we sing and affirm songs like, lover of my soul, giver of all things, source of life and strength, I am one with you. It's something that allows us to mentally come back into the realization that this thing is here, it is flowing in, through, and as me, I'm one with it, and there is no separation between what it is and what I am. That's incredibly important. We have to make a connection. But he goes further, and he says, the universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. To us, as much is possible as we can conceive according to law. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we are ready to understand. Hear that again. Should all the wisdom of the universe be poured over us, we should yet receive only that which we are ready to understand. And he goes a little further. Each receives what he asks for according to his ability to embody. And just to keep it holistic here, I'll say it this way. Each receives what she asks for according to her ability to embody. Preparation meets manifestation. But what does that look like? And I wanted to demonstrate this. I've been so excited. I got my props. Because I want to demonstrate what this looks like, right? This idea of we can only receive what it is that we are able to embody. See, the way it works, and Ernest Holmes in this section, he uses the word molds, right? That what we're doing, we're creating a mold for this universal substance to fill, right? And so if I were making cookies, right? And Halloween is coming up. So say I wanted to make some beautiful Halloween cookies, and I wanted to have ghosts and bats and pumpkins, right? All these different things. Then I would have specific molds for those things, right? Maybe I'll make a basic sugar cookie batter, right? And then I pour it into the molds, and because that substance, that batter can become anything, right? It forms into the molds, and then it becomes the very cookies, the types of cookies that I desire. Yes, yes? right? We understand that. And so it is very similar when we're thinking about our own lives, when there are things that we want to create, there are things that we want to manifest, and we may be frustrated because we're thinking, okay, well, Pastor Greg, you're saying this thing is infinite, and you're saying I'm one with it, and you're saying I'm worthy, and I'm prosperous, and all these things, but it's not happening in my life. And what I want us to understand today is that it's not that God or source is not still this unlimited thing, but it can only fill the molds that we're providing for it. Interesting. And the mold is us. The mold is our thoughts. The mold is our faith. The mold is our belief. So here's what it looks like. And LaVonda, can you come up for a second? So here's LaVonda's mold. Okay? And so there are things that she wants to demonstrate. There are things that she wants to manifest in her life. And here we have this infinite universal substance. I got these little marbles, all different types of things. And I got individual because I want us to understand that there's infinite possibilities, right? That God can become anything. We have all these different possibilities. Fill up your mold. Fill it all the way up to the top. Now, she's just getting a lot of God. She's getting a lot of this infinite intelligence. It's flowing in through and as her life. And so she's experiencing a level of abundance. She's experiencing a level of prosperity, right? Okay, now it's at the top. Now, first, are there more gems and stones in this bucket?
Yes.
There's lots more, right? So that's the infinite that exists. There's lots more in here that could be put in here, but is there any room in this mold? Can she, if she tries to pour more in, will anything stay in that mold? It's an impossibility. So that means that if there's something new that we want to create in our lives, if we can't continue to use the same mold, we can't continue to use the same thoughts, we can't continue to use the same belief, we can't continue to use the same faith, so what has to happen? We have to change the size of our mold. And so now we put that God into this new mold, put it in, and what happens? There's more room. And so now the infinite can continue to be infinite, and now we can fill this up to the top. And God is being God, filling it, expressing itself because it wants to express itself. It wants to show us that it can be anything, that it can be greater, it can be bigger, it can be larger. And still, now that we get to the top, is there still more of the infinite in this basket?
Yes.
There's still more of the infinite. All this potential, all this possibility is here, waiting, available to fill up our mold. But we cannot fill this mold unless what? The mold becomes expanded, it becomes bigger. And so what happens? We have a larger mold. Oh my God. And what do? We expand. We expand that mold, and now there's more space. There's more space for that mold to be filled. And there's more God in it. It's the same, we have all of the same God that we had before, all of the same beliefs that we believed before, but now we've expanded them. We've made them larger, we made them greater. We've expanded our faith, our belief, our mindset. And so now the infinite can express in, through, and as our lives in deeper, greater, more profound ways. You can put it right here. Thank you so much. And so I want us to see this, because this is how it works. And this is what it does. It is filling the molds that we're creating. And so if there's something new, if there's something more powerful that you want to create in your life, what's necessary? To expand your current mold, to expand your current thoughts, to expand your current belief. But of course, now the question comes in, okay, Pastor Greg, that was bad. I like that. I get it, right? Shout out to all the visual learners, right? It's beautiful, right? To be able to see it from this perspective, right? And feel free after service if you want to come and fill up your molds just to get it in your consciousness, please do that, right? But now the question comes, okay, well, Pastor Greg, I hear you. Preparation meets manifestation. You're telling me now that I have to increase my thoughts or my beliefs. But then the question becomes, how? How do I do that? Like, okay, that sounds great, but my physical body, I don't know how to grow myself beyond what I already am. I was a child, I'm an adult. I've reached the full capacity of what my body is in terms of growth. So what are you saying, Pastor Greg? Well, before we can talk specifically about the how, I got to talk about how not to grow, right? And this is one of my favorite parts, just one of my favorite things from Ernest Holmes in general. And if you get a chance, you can go back to early on, I think it was in our first month at CSC, I preached a message, acting as if or acting a wish. It was in our Know Thyself series. And we'll post the link to that. But go back to it because I deal with this in a little more depth in that message. But there's something here that's incredibly important for us to understand. When we talk about preparing and we're talking about preparation, first we got to understand how not to do it. And how not to do it is hoping and wishing. Now, Ernest Holmes writes it this way. He says, hope is good. It is better than despair. But it is a subtle illusion and is an unconscious compromise and has no part in an effective mental treatment or in an effective manifestation or in an effective demonstration. I'll say it again. Hope is good, but it is better than despair. But it is a subtle illusion and is an unconscious compromise. If we went back to week 1, we also shared where Ernest Holmes writes that when we're creating our mindset around what it is that we want and what it is that we want to demonstrate, he says this is not done by holding thoughts, but by knowing the truth. Knowing the truth is different than hoping and wishing. So unfortunately, some of us, we may have understood. We've gotten to this idea, okay, I got to expand myself. I got to create a bigger mold. But then we're hoping it happens. We're wishing for a better day. We're not knowing this truth that this law is definite. What did we talk about last week? We talked about the idea that, one, it's impersonal, it's always available, and it operates with mechanical accuracy. When you know those three things, there's no hoping or wishing involved because you know it's impersonal, right? It's not worried about what you're doing. It's not judging you. It's not looking, as Pastor Yolanda loves to say, it doesn't have that naughty and nice list like Santa Claus. Right? It's not doing that. It's impersonal, right? It'll work the same for you if you're a child. It'll work the same for you if you're 90 years old. It'll work the same for you if you live in New York. It'll work the same for you if you live in London. It does not matter. It's completely impersonal, but also it's always available. And that's incredibly important, right? Because when we need that thing to be whatever it is, we want it to show up right away. And just as we use in this demonstration, although the container was full, it was still always available. There was still more there, ready, waiting, willing to fill, right? And then also the mechanical accuracy. And so when you know that mechanical accuracy, just as we trust, and no, we don't even think about it, that all of the molecules that we need to breathe in to sustain our life, we trust and know that it's there. It's mechanical, right? The molecules are here. You have never in your life worried or wondered, right? Is there going to be oxygen available for yourself or for humanity? I mean, we think about the billions of people on this earth. Have we ever stopped and worried, oh my God, well, there are billions of people on here and new people are coming every day. I don't know, is there going to be enough air for me? Right? There's a mechanical accuracy that all of the molecules that we need to breathe in and then to exhale in order to keep this flow moving, this giving and receiving, flowing of life, we know it's already there. Mechanical accuracy. And so we recognize that if any of those things are true, that is where we can let go of the hoping and wishing. You got to get yourself to a definite place. You got to get yourself to a place of knowing. It's a place of trusting. And my definition for trust that I love, or rather surrender. Surrender is extraordinary trust. And so when we're surrendering to this power, to this thing, this subjective mind that is law, that is impersonal, that is always available, that's when we're bringing the extraordinary trust to the place. Just as you extraordinarily trust this air that you cannot see, you extraordinarily trust it. Just as you trust that, so you trust this thing, this spiritual thing, this thing that we are calling God. But then as we move forward, if we want to get more specific, because it's important to be specific and it's important to be practical. And we love to say that here at CSC, we're teaching practical spirituality. So the first thing we can do in order to expand our container, in order to expand our thoughts, our faith, our belief, is through classes and workshops. This is why we offer classes and workshops here at CSC. This is why today is the third Sunday. It's God Talk Sunday. It's an opportunity to come and ask questions and expand your thoughts, expand your sense of possibility, right? It's perfect, and it's that one of those things that Pastor Yolanda and I from the very beginning, when we visioned CSC, we recognized that we needed to create a space that would allow anyone who has any questions, who may have been coming in contact with this information for the first time. It brings up a lot of confusion. It brings up excitement, but there's also a lot of questions. We wanted to create a forum that allows for that that thing to be answered and so that we can come with clarity. And so one of the things that Ernest Holmes says here and what it does, he says that we must learn these spiritual laws, right? These universal principles. But he says first, we must come to understand them before we can use them, which is important. I mean, imagine if you just haphazardly were wielding a hammer around without knowing how to use it or what its purpose is, right? Because people can use a hammer for many different things, right? I mean, a hammer in and of itself, I love to say sometimes, you could kill someone with a hammer or you can build a house with a hammer, right? But so in the same way, we understand that we have to understand what its purpose is, right? And sometimes that means we have to either watch somebody using that thing or ask questions, right? Or take a class. When we were talking in week one, I love to use the example of childhood toys, Play-Doh, right? Because I think that's just a beautiful example of this substance that can become anything. We use this example today. I also talked about the idea, another childhood toy, Lego, building blocks, right? That actually Legos can become any and everything. But for me personally, I'm not good with Legos, right? I mean, I can build a little rudimentary house, I can do something like that. But if you go online and type in like Lego designs to see what's possible, and I talked about someone, you could create a Lego sculpture of Einstein and just type that in. It's amazing to see what's out there, right? But my personal capacity, my belief, my faith in what's possible with Legos wouldn't allow me to do that. But what can I do? I can go to a class. Somebody can teach me how to use the Legos, and then what am I doing? My faith and my belief is now being expanded because of that thing. Similar example. I was having this conversation with my best friend a few months ago. We were talking about this. When you think about teachers in our lives as we were growing up as students, or if you're a student now, many times you can struggle in a subject and you're just not getting it, and you're just not getting it, right? But then you find a teacher or a tutor that then can help you. And we think that the tutor or the teacher is doing the work, that because I had this great teacher, they were the ones that allowed me to get that A. No, what was happening is their sense of belief, their sense of faith, you were able to attach onto that, which then increased your belief and your faith within your ability to solve that math equation, within your ability to write that paper. And then you were able, through the power of God in and as you, which was responding to your mold, you get it? It was then manifested in, through, and as you. So through classes, through workshops, through teachers, again, recognizing, as Jesus was so clear, it wasn't about his power. He said it clearly. It's not me, but the Father within me that does the work. He was clear that when the two men wanted to be healed, he said, do you believe that you can be healed? Your faith has made you whole. The scene with the centurion, same thing. It was by the belief of the centurion. He said, I know if you just speak the word, it'll be done. And he said, it's because of your faith that the healing takes place, right? The same thing, the woman with the issue of blood. She touched the hem of his garment. That didn't have anything to do with Jesus' power. That had to do with her faith and belief, because she had heard that there was healing happening. She had heard that there was wholeness happening. She had heard that there was transformation happening. And her faith and belief created the receptacle so that she could receive it easily and effortlessly. Yes. And so we also understand, how do we prepare? Well, we can prepare through meditation. This is why I talked about in the beginning, where Ernest Holmes says that we need to create an outlet. We need to make a connection. Unity must be established as a constant unity must be established, and a conscious connection must be made. This is what meditation is. This is what we're doing. We're connecting, tapping back into, plugging back in to this reality that we are. When we think about the movie of The Matrix, this is fun today. When we think about the movie The Matrix, right? So often, and I've shared this idea before, but it's here now, so we're going to talk about it again. We often hear people talking about the Matrix as a negative thing, right? That I need to get out of the Matrix because the Matrix is evil. But if you recall, Neo as the one, Neo as the Savior, Neo as the Christ figure, which is a representation of all of us, right? Neo had to plug back in order to save the world. You get it? You had to make a connection. There had to be a conscious connection, right? And what happened is, as he actually plugged back in, then he was actually able to destroy the sense of separation between the two worlds. Because even when he was in the world that was not the Matrix and supposedly good, he was able to use his powers even in that world where you weren't supposed to be able to use power, because he severed the sense of separation. But you got to plug in to do that. Yes, you disconnect for a minute. His disconnection was about his mind. His disconnection was about his old thoughts. His disconnection was about that sense of faith and belief that he had in an old way of being. He had to step away for a minute to build up his cup, to build up this new reality, right? And then Morpheus was able to guide him through this idea of freeing his mind. Realize, is that air that you're breathing? He would ask him, right? Recognizing that there are illusions out here, that you got to get rid of those. And then expanded his sense of belief, and that's how Neo was able to save the world. Again, all of this is a representation, an individual representation of our own lives. So through meditation, we are able to tap back in. Through meditation, we are able to connect. Through meditation, we get back to this place of understanding that we're bigger than any circumstance. We're bigger than any challenge. We're bigger than any problem. That expands our faith. That expands our belief. That expands our mold, our receptacle for the source, for spirit to move through. And then finally, our preparation is about daily practice. The last principle of Celebration Spiritual Center says daily spiritual practice is not an option, right? And this is why. Because we recognize that if you bring your daily practice, right, taking time to read something inspirational, taking time to sit in stillness, sit in silence for just 5 minutes, it doesn't have to be deep, it doesn't have to be long, right? Taking that time to maybe write a gratitude letter, right, to write in your gratitude journal, to write and affirm new intentions. This is something interesting, and science actually, speaks of it a few different ways, right? When we think about writing, what's important about what we actually absolutely know, and it's been proven from a scientific perspective, that we can begin to write about how we want our life to be, and that will come into being. I've shared the study. This happened with a group of college students, and they separated the groups, and one of the groups of college students began to write as if, in the present tense, as if they were already succeeding and writing about what was going on in their life, right? Another group of students weren't doing any writing. And it was found that the group of students that were doing that writing and affirming, creating through their writing, they were able to experience that very thing. Now, what we also understand, what many people do, because we have, shut in and shut away our feelings and our thoughts, we write all our feelings down, right? We write about all of our problems, right? But what I've learned, and I can say this from my own experience, is that when I was in that space of writing about all of the problems, which, again, there was a level of intelligence there and a level of wisdom in terms of getting that out so it wasn't in my consciousness. If I look back, I go back 5-6 years ago, I realized that I was still living that same story over and over again because I kept writing about it every morning. Because I was just creating the same mold over and over again for this infinite intelligence to just fill, right? But what I found is when I stopped writing about the problems, I stopped writing about the difficulties, I stopped writing about those things and only began to write my intentions, my affirmations, create the life that I desire, everything changed. And so while I agree to a point, and maybe you do it for a few weeks just to get the ball rolling, if you're not used to expressing your feelings and emotions, and I think, shout out to all the brothers out here, sometimes it's very helpful for men to do that, right? Because men are taught that we're not emotional, we're taught that we're not expressive. One thing that's good is to just kind of get that stuff out on paper initially, right? But as we get in that practice of writing, get in that practice of getting in touch with our feelings, then we want to get in touch with our feelings about our prosperity. We want to get in touch with our feelings about our abundance. We want to get in touch with our feelings about how we want our families to move forward. We want to get in touch with our feelings about how we want our neighborhood to look. We want to get in touch with our feelings, but affirming now what we want to create and no longer talking about what we don't want. Because as long as we do that, and we see examples of that all over the earth, on the news, we're constantly talking about what we don't want and what's wrong and why it's wrong. And then we wonder why we continue to experience the same thing over and over again, creating the same mold. We got to expand our mold. We got to expand our ideas. We got to expand our possibility. And so finally, I want to leave with this, something that Ernest Holmes writes in this section, and I just think it's perfect. He writes this. He says, "We are immersed in an infinite knowingness. The question is, how much of this reality are we going to express in our own lives?" How much of this reality? We've talked about it. Whatever size your mold is right now, and there's no judgment, right? I mean, we're using these different sizes just for an example. There's no judgment about the size of your mold. As I've talked about so many times, you hear people say, oh, I need more faith. What they're really saying is, I need to expand my mold. Because you don't need more faith. You have all the faith you need, right? Faith is a muscle. Faith is something that we are born with, that it's one of our superpowers, right? But we recognize that if we don't exercise it, it may become atrophied, and it feels like you need more faith, right? But we recognize that if we activate it, if we use it, then we begin to live life moving from faith to faith to faith. And by moving in that way, that is expanding our mold. Because what I recognize and know to be true is that, okay, I spoke the word and I affirmed and I wrote in my journal that I am creating a $10,000 month, right, every month. And once I've achieved that, it's now time to expand the mold. If that's possible, then $50,000 a month is possible. If that's possible, then $100,000 a month is possible. I keep expanding the mold. Why? Because this thing is infinite. There's always more of the source. There's always more of the substance in the basket. Always. And it wants to express as your life. It wants to express as more abundance. It wants to express as healing. It wants to express as change. It wants to express as transformation. It wants to express as love. It wants to express as joy. It wants to express as peace. How much of it are you going to allow to express in and as your lives? Pastor Yolanda and I started with a very small idea, Celebration Spiritual Center in Brooklyn. But look where we are today. Look at all of you. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. We talk about it so often, and I remember telling Yolanda this. I said, what's so interesting about what's going to happen, we reached out to friends and family and those that we knew, and I'm so grateful that so many of you have been here since day one, right? But I also recognize, I said, watch, a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to see the room filled with people that we would not have known except we created this thing, except we said yes to it. We were all strangers. We didn't know each other existed, and look at us now as one big family. And so it's beautiful when we think about that idea, that just from a thought, we can create a community. Just from a thought, those things and those people and those resources and places that we didn't even know existed, all of a sudden they come into being. But now the Spirit is asking, calling you to become more. How much more of this thing are you going to allow to express as your life? Because it's infinite. Can you believe a little bit more beyond whatever your experience is now? Wherever the good is, right? Or wherever the pain is, can you believe? Can you expand your faith and belief in this infinite thing to know that it can become what you need it to be? That's the power behind that scene with Moses. I am that I am. I will be what I will be. I will be whatever you need me to be. It was like God was saying, I'm this invisible, infinite substance. I can fill any mold, Moses. So do you need me to be that thing that'll part the waters? I'll part the waters for you. If you need me to be fire before your people at night so you can see, I'll be that. If you need me to be a cloud behind you to protect you, I'll be that. If you need me to be manna raining down from heaven and food that you need, I'll be that. What do you need me to be, Moses? I am that I am. How much of this thing will you allow to express in and as your life? I will be what you allow me to be. I'm a loving presence. I'm an unconditionally loving presence. I will not knock away your limiting beliefs. You must knock out that limiting belief. You must knock out that small thought. And then let me fill it. Yes. Oh my God. On that, let us stand. Let us stand. Let us stand. Oh, I just hear the voice of Spirit so strong in this moment, speaking to us. It wants to be the very thing that you've been asking for. But it is time for each and every one of us to expand ourselves. Because how does it work? It works through us. And what does it do? It fills the mold that we create through our thoughts and our beliefs. For some of us, it's time to stop the silly, meaningless conversations. For some of us, it's time to stop the complaining. It's time to stop the analyzing. It's time to stop the nitpicking. For some of us, it's time to live in that place of I will only heal, I will only bless, I will only prosper with my words. And if I can't say any of those things, I will shut my mouth. Yes. Because I recognize that I'm creating molds. And I recognize that this unconditionally loving presence will fill it. For some of us, it's time to let go of the story of our story. For some of us, it's time to let go of the story of our family. It's time to let go of that voice of our mother in our head, that voice of our father in our head, that voice of our grandmother in our head. It's time to let go of that. Because we've given that mold to the source and we've seen easily and effortlessly, mechanically, it's filled it every time. But what happens if we let go of that story and begin to tell the story that we are worthy? Does not matter if nobody ever told you.
Yes.
It does not matter. What we know is that our elders, our guardians, they did the best that they could based on what they knew. We love them, we bless them, we let it go. And now we tell ourselves, we remind ourselves that we are worthy. We remind ourselves if we have to do it every day and recite it 100 times, we do it because we know that as we do that, we are expanding our mold. We call ourselves worthy. We call ourselves prosperous. We call ourselves valuable. We call ourselves more than enough. We call ourselves big enough. We call ourselves winners. We call ourselves victorious. And as we do that thing, it will be filled. Mother, Father, God, I am so grateful and thankful to stand here in this space and this awareness of what we've created together. Because at the beginning of this service, we set intentions and we spoke a word and the answers are here. Yes. The word that we were seeking is here. The transformation that we're seeking, it's here. And so as we are as we are here with this word, and as this word is impacting us, as this word is touching us, as this reality, this remembrance is touching us, we forgive ourselves and we set ourselves free now for all of the times that we created molds that did not allow us to be great on the earth. We forgive ourselves. We heal it now. We let it go. We do not spend any time thinking about that past. And now that we recognize how we are creating, and now that we recognize what it is that you're doing as you're filling these molds, we now choose to expand ourselves. We expand ourselves with our words. We say that all things are possible. We expand ourselves with our words and our thoughts and our beliefs, and we say that I am worthy. We expand ourselves with our thoughts and our beliefs that we say that I am prosperous. We expand ourselves and we say that I am healed, I am happy, I am whole. We expand our thoughts and our beliefs here and now, and we speak that same word over our family. My family is healed. My family is happy. My family is whole. We speak that word over our finances, and we say that our finances are healed, our finances are happy, and our finances are whole. We speak that over our careers. We speak that over our passions, and we say that in our careers and in our passions, we are healed, we are happy, and we are whole. We begin to create the new mold for the new experience that we want to create, because we recognize that you are always responding to us, and we recognize that you, as an unconditionally loving presence, want to fill our molds easily and effortlessly with whatever we provide to you to fill. We let go of smallness. We let go of small thoughts. We let go of small life. We let go of limits. We let go of separation. And we step back into this unity with the all that is, and unity with every manifestation of the all. That is our brothers and sisters. Every manifestation of the all. That is our earth. Every manifestation of the all. That is the all of nature, the trees, the clouds, the seas, the birds, the animals. We step into the unity of every manifestation of the all, and we bless it at every time that we see it. When we see prosperity, we bless it because we know that is our prosperity. When we see abundance, we bless it because we know that is our abundance. When we see healing, we bless it because we know that is our healing. When we see transformation, we bless it because we know that is our transformation. When we see peace, we bless it because we know that is our peace. When we see no stress, we bless it because we know that is our lack of stress. Oh, Mother, Father, God, I am grateful and thankful for each and every person here in this room, these individual manifestations of